my hope with today's podcast is to make churches aware that there are ladies out there who are practicing regularly and highly skilled, and some of them are competitive shooters. They're way beyond just certificate holders, and we might not even see them for what they are or realize that they're there.
Welcome to CV Ministries Church Security Through Prevention podcast. I'm your host, Daniel Blevins. My guest this week is Gretchen Cardoso. Gretchen comes with some great insight on the importance of women training and gaining the necessary skill to protect themselves and others while also serving on the security team for their churches. We hope this encourages women to get out there and train and serve. Please continue to like, share, and subscribe to the podcast as you listen, and think about who or what topic you'd like to hear in the future. Gretchen is actually somebody who contacted us to be able to talk about this subject and to cover such things like we're going to cover today regarding the well-armed woman. It's something that I've been wanting to do for a while, and her reaching out was great timing in doing that. Try out the Google review link below in the show notes and leave us a Google review. And even if you aren't on an app that has the show notes, when you're going out to Google, take a few moments, look up CV Ministries, and leave us a Google review. Let's hear from Gretchen and the importance of women training and serving in their churches. Gretchen, welcome to the Church Security Through Prevention podcast.
Thanks for having me, Daniel.
Absolutely. Yeah, I've been looking forward to this. And this one was kind of an exciting one when you actually emailed me with the podcast idea, which I love, and I always look forward to hearing about people's ideas. And yours was about the well-armed woman. And you're a member of that organization, correct?
Yeah, I was hoping to talk about women serving on church safety teams and also how the well-armed woman relates to that. They are surprisingly related and mutually beneficial, you might say.
Yeah, I think so too. I often, in my seminars, I often reference the well-armed woman. I don't believe that not all men can teach women effectively how to shoot. It takes a different, it's a different demeanor, I guess, a guy needs to have in that, different set of patience and things along those lines for it, to where women teaching women seems to be working really well for the organization. And then also, like you mentioned, just women in security in general, I think is incredibly valuable.
Yeah, so today, as we talk about it, we might be able to highlight some of the female advantages, some of the hidden gems there that maybe teams haven't explored before.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we have I lead them at our main campus. I say lead, it's more of oversee the team there, and we've got a few women on the team. And I'll tell you, if the women come to me with something that they've observed, something just doesn't feel right, I pay attention. It's not you're just, it's nothing, don't worry about it. No, I pay attention because, I've learned that even just in marriage, I have to, God gave us women for a reason to help support and help be a helpmate in marriage. Well, I think it's the same way when we're serving together on security.
Yeah, it sounds like you're touching on that intuition factor that women tend to be gifted with, that sixth sense, the ability to maybe predict behavior or anticipate a need or just see something that might otherwise be overlooked.
Yeah, I think sometimes, and it depends on a woman's background and experiences, but they can often just see somebody and something just trigger within them that something's just not right.
Mm-hmm.
So tell me a little bit about your experience in church security.
Sure. All right. I interviewed some fellow chapter leaders of the well-armed woman to give a balanced and greater, representation of ladies serving in church security. So for all four of us, we know what it's like to be at a church that has no safety team. That's kind of in the past. And thanks to your efforts and other organizations, more and more churches have safety and security teams. Um, so most all of us ladies were invited onto the team. As churches build their teams, it tends to be kind of an, thoughtful invitation only type of structure. So I serve at my church. I'm on the rotation, but due to my background with the Well-Armed Woman, doing some teaching, being a certified instructor and that sort of thing, it kind of gives me the confidence and experience to offer training or do some planning for our church, and just help with leadership without being the leader over everything. I just want to be an asset to the church in ways to help flesh out the team and the training and the subject matter that we need to be covering.
All right, so let me back up just a minute to what you said about being invited on the team. You know, you and the other women that was in that. Only for clarification, because I know I talk about that. I see a lot of churches, they'll hold, I don't know, we'll call them recruitment events or information meetings and things like that. They never seem to really go well. As I travel with Sheepdog Ministries, something that has been talked about, and that I've incorporated into my seminars as well is, what Jimmy Meeks calls the Jesus method. Jesus went out and invited the disciples to be part with him. And in churches in general, people would much rather be invited than volunteer for something. So when you say an invitation, is that kind of how that went for you?
Yeah, when I was listening to one of your earlier podcasts, I really appreciated how it was discussed that Jesus method, where he chose his 12 disciples. He invited them. They still had to respond. But there is something about ministry where, if a church can carefully and prayerfully select the best people for the role, and maybe acknowledge the fact that these folks are already devoted and have a servant's heart and humility and, all of those things, then it's still up to the invitee to pray about it and accept. But myself and these other ladies, we were recruited, you might say, by our local church.
And I think that's great. And I don't, I think for the most part, the women that we have had and do have on our team now have come to us. I don't know that it's ever been something that we've recruited specifically to women. It's they have felt that in their, they have that heart of wanting to stand on the wall of protection, or maybe it's part of their background or experience that puts them into that role. But, and some of them, their husbands are already serving. And it's like, well, why not? Let's just serve together.
Those are all great reasons, and I would never discourage someone from volunteering. I'm hoping our podcast encourages two things. One, for women who are interested in self-protection, it starts with themselves, and the Well-Armed Woman is really helpful with that. But once you've got self-protection kind of figured out, then you start thinking about using that skill set to serve and help others.
I also think it needs maybe even a third point that hopefully it'll help do is help other church security teams to seek out those women that would be assets for their teams as well.
Absolutely.
So tell me, what in your interviewing with these other women, what are some of the things that came out of that would be valuable?
I can touch on the Well-Armed Woman, what it is, and how it's been helpful to each one of us. And we can also cover the female advantage and also some personal encouragement that these ladies have to churches and to other ladies as from the aspect of serving the Lord.
Absolutely.
So how about if I start with the Well-Armed Woman?
That sounds like a plan.
Great. So, for those of you who haven't heard of it, the Well Armed Woman is a nonprofit organization. It exists to educate, equip, and empower women in firearms. So, what we have is a network of shooting chapters all over the country. And these chapters are like local meetings of members that meet at a range, and they're led by a volunteer who is female and certified to be an instructor. So they have a monthly meeting, and it's training, practice, learning, encouragement. It tends to be at least 1 hour of live fire on the range. Sometimes they have classroom time that's just as long. So at the time of this recording, there are 345 chapters in 47 states with just shy of 11,000 members.
Yeah, I tell people there's probably a chapter nearby, no matter where they live.
That's right.
My daughter, our daughter just moved out of state to go run a ranch, and she was determined. She wanted a firearm before she left, and we picked one out that she really likes. And I said, now you need to get with, and I recommended that she check to see if there's any chapters in her area. So I'm hoping once she gets settled a little bit that and I'll probably help her pursue that as well, because it is valuable to have a group of individuals, like-minded individuals, training together.
Yeah, it's an amazing experience. So I found the Well Armed Woman, I think, in 2014. So I just became a member, and what it did for me is it meant that I got to go to the range once a month instead of once a year. I lived in a state that had very restrictive laws, and so for me to be able to go to the range once a month and receive quality instruction and be in an all-female environment where I felt everything was focused on safety, first of all, and learning and training, it was amazing. So I enjoyed that for a couple of years, and then when I moved to a new home state, there wasn't a chapter in my area, and so I took that responsibility and started a chapter in the city where I live now, and got NRA certified to instruct. So it's been a really neat journey, always adding to my knowledge and skills and ability, and hungry to learn more.
And that's important too, is that we remain hungry to learn more, no matter what it is. And I tell people oftentimes, I'll never say that I've arrived. That just, then pride and arrogance is obviously set in. That we're always training.
I agree 100%. And there's something about having to teach that and instruct that requires you to be pretty solid on those fundamentals. And so it's humbling, and it's a higher level of accountability, and I'm really thankful for it.
Yeah, I'm on the website now, and I love the website. A lot of information, and it looks like even during this COVID time that we're in, that there's some really good online training that's even being offered that looks like it would be of great value. Seems a lot of people just aren't even able to meet.
That's true. And we have had some Zoom meetings in our state when things were shut down. The Well Armed Woman has two websites. One is thewellarmedwoman.com, and that's where you'll find a lot of free resources and also some products for sale. But when it's time for a lady to join her local chapter, you go to twawshootingchapters.org, and that's where you become a member and find out where your local chapter is.
Yeah, when I clicked on Find Local Chapter, it automatically sent me that direction. Yeah.
Great. So moving on to what you asked me about, what I've learned from some of my fellow chapter leaders, I wanted to kind of focus on the female advantage. All right. So the female advantage includes a protector mindset that's pretty natural. You could call it mother bear instinct if you like. Ladies tend to have advanced intuition, that sixth sense. not always being able to put into words, but they can see and feel when something isn't right. I think that intuition lends itself to being able to predict behavior. They can also anticipate a need, see that someone needs help, even if it's medically or emotionally or otherwise. They would be one of the covert members of your safety and security team because they just don't fit the typical look of someone that you would expect to be on the safety detail.
Kind of a funny story about that. We have one woman on our team, and so there's a process that we do with escorting the ushers when they're after they've collected the offering, and then we stand outside the door, either us or our law enforcement partners that are there with us. But then the ushers will call and say, "Okay, we're ready for the drop," because they've got to come out the room, and then we have this big bank mail drop thing that is safe that it goes into. So they make the call, and the woman that's on the team answers back, "Yeah, you're good. I'm outside the door." And they came out, and they actually are like, "You're our security," and laughed at her. And she took it in stride and said, "Yes, and you should be thankful of that." But it was just she just laughed at it. But you're right. It is that covert. It's not what they're anticipating when they see a woman serving in that security capacity.
Yeah, and that can be a complete advantage, something that you want to make use of when the circumstance would benefit from it. As far as skills go, women are skilled. When it comes to firearms, shooting is a skill that can be equally attained by men or women, but also medical and de-escalation skills, I think, can be equally attained by either gender. Ladies tend to be detail oriented, and when they serve, they are reliable and regular.
We just want to take a quick break here to let you know how to contact us and where to find out more about our national seminar. I see communities that may know why church security is important, but they may not be doing anything about it or don't know how to do it well. Our national seminars are for ushers, greeters, children's workers, staff, volunteers, your security teams, and other ministries in your community. We say that this is a level 1 training that is designed to help equip you to serve well in your various ministries while maintaining a safe place for people to come. Getting churches on the same or similar page when it comes to security will only make the community safer as well. The easiest way to find out more information or to contact us is to go to cv-ministries.com. There you'll find a variety of training DVDs and books, with more being developed all the time. There's also a place at the bottom of the page where you can sign up for our monthly newsletter and to be able to get more information. We would love your feedback on topics or guests that you would like to hear on future podcasts. Okay, now that we have that out of the way, let's get back to the podcast. Yeah, I think that, when you talk about, whenever I do, like I did an NRA course, my daughter wanted to take it again, and then she invited 2 or 3 of her female friends to do it with her before she left. And what I talk about is oftentimes women are the better shot than the guys. God just created women's bodies to breathe, the heart rate, all of that is just different, to where my wife can shoot twice a year and maintain, be a phenomenal shot. But for a guy, if we don't practice more often, I think it's a skill that perishes far quicker for us.
And that's interesting. I mean, shooting skills are going to be perishable for everyone, which is why we do all want to be consistently training.
Right.
But certainly in sports, I've noticed, whether it's racing, motorcycles, or otherwise, the difference between the male and female brain and how we learn. The males tend to just accelerator, full throttle right away, and ladies tend to be a little more cautious and want to stay in control, but they catch up in skill once they feel they have their their proficiency mastered. So ladies can be extremely skilled and stay in control of that whole process, which adds to safety overall.
I I think that as far as the firearm goes, and I've had women tell me this, but then I've experienced it with a couple. With my daughter, for one, when she turned 16, she's like, "Dad, I want to, for my birthday, I want to go to the range with you." Great, but I think shooting is shooting skills, at least initially for many women, it's an emotional thing, or much more so than it is for a guy. Have you seen that as well?
I love it that you noticed that. I think it's something we definitely need to acknowledge. There tends to be issues of apprehension, confidence. Ladies tend to be self-critical and way more aware of how they appear to others. So there's probably emotions wrapped up in all of that, even if a lady hasn't experienced some sort of trauma or have a heightened sense of needing to protect themselves. But it's deeply satisfying for these ladies to have success on the target and mastery. It's very rewarding, and there are definitely positive emotions involved.
Yeah, my daughter, when we went to the range, and she had shot before, from a younger age, she's been shooting, but I don't know what it was that day. Maybe she was taking it more seriously. Maybe it was more impactful for her. She starts crying after she shot a few rounds. And
Sure.
in my mind, I'm thinking of Tom Hanks in the movie. There's no crying in baseball, and I'm thinking there's no crying at the range. And I didn't say that to her. We joke about it now, but I said, "Oh, are you okay? Do you want to quit?" She says, "No, I don't know why I'm crying. I don't want to quit shooting." And she's not the only woman that I've taken through courses and then taken shooting to where they've had that kind of an emotional response to their emotion, to their first time shooting, or
Yes.
Or to early on in their shooting.
Mm-hmm. And we are more emotional creatures for the most part, but I think that could also reveal some anticipation. And then, we tend to be afraid of what we don't know. And then you master the unknown, you conquer it. And that can be an emotional experience.
Yeah, you also brought up the de-escalation piece, and I think that is. I'm doing a seminar this weekend. At the time of this recording, I'm doing a seminar this weekend, and I take most of Friday night and cover de-escalation and verbal de-escalation and conflict resolution, and in that, most of your security teams, the numbers are built up from guys. And I often address the guys that, for us guys, when somebody bows up at us, let's say, our natural tendency is to want to defend or do that, bow back up at them. We have to put that pride or that arrogance aside to be able to respond in a healthy way and to be able to communicate in a healthy way. I think having women on that team, having those de-escalation skills and good communicator. I also joke about, guys, if you think you're a good communicator, ask your wife. She'll let you know. But it's true. Women in general, their minds do process differently. They're able to look and listen at what's going on and respond in a better fashion that is not threatening or less threatening than oftentimes the way guys will communicate.
Yeah, that can be helpful. And you would also want females on your team. When you think about women's ministry, children's ministry, there's some places where a lady would be best suited as a protector or as someone who gets close relationally to other women and children.
I agree. Because a lot of those ministries, at least at our church, we don't allow them, if it's a woman serving in children's or women serving in women's ministry, the church's policy is that they can't be armed. And the reason why is, well, from multiple reasons, but insurance reasons and so on. Everybody that serves on our team has to meet a certain standard
Yeah.
And then it has to go before the elder board for approval. And because basically you're being deemed as you're a representative, you're representing the church in that capacity. And, most people, and it's not a blanket statement, but most people serving in the church, if they're carrying a firearm, and we've had guns left everywhere,
Oh
in
dear.
person, it's amazing. But I call them certificate holders. They have just enough
Yeah.
training to get their certificate, and then nothing else. They don't have that mindset of, of their firearm. What's the condition? What is it? All of that. So that's why, in ministry in general. But if we have women that are serving on the security team, but they're also involved in these other ministries, great. Then that just adds a greater depth to the security of what's going on at the church.
Yeah, and I agree with you 100% on the certificate holders not being that standard, that each, church set their own standards that are much higher than just if you have a CCW card. But my hope with today's podcast is to make churches aware that there are ladies out there who are practicing regularly and highly skilled, and some of them are competitive shooters. They're way beyond just certificate holders, and we might not even see them for what they are or realize that they're there.
Yeah, absolutely. So you had a third point that you wanted to cover as well.
Just some of the encouragement and final thoughts that each of our leadership ladies had about ministry, being a woman and wanting to serve God in the church. I think you'll appreciate this. Some of our protector ladies felt very out of place until they found their role as a sheepdog or as a safety team member. Some of these ladies didn't fit the stereotypical nurturing woman that they felt they were supposed to be fit into
Sure.
the mold of, and again, it just stereotypes. But my encouragement would be, if you don't feel like you have a place yet serving in the church, this is something to think about and pray about. And for ladies that want to explore being a protector, by all means, look into the Well-Armed Woman, because that's definitely a path to some really great training and instruction.
Yeah, and I think it's taking some time, but we're starting. It's like turning the Titanic with a little tiny rudder. I think church leadership. As I traveled with sheepdog seminars, the message with sheepdog seminars was that why church security is important. I think across America, churches are more and more realizing that they don't have an option legally or for the protection of the flock, biblically, that something from a security standpoint has to happen. And so that's been a slow turn to where, okay, now how do we do it well? And then, like you said, there is those stereotypes that are still out there. Like women need to be that nurturer, serve in the nursery or the children's ministry, or maybe they're an usher or they're a greeter aspect of it. And that just doesn't fit everybody's mold. And they need to be receptive to that, because it actually adds great depth to a security team to have women serving.
Yes, and so all of these ladies that I spoke with, they have occupations or experience in a related field. So one was a nurse, another was a range employee on the weekends, the third one works in juvenile probation. All four of us ladies are, of course, instructors, and two of them are competitive shooters. So it was just personally satisfying for each one of them to be able to find their place in church to serve the Lord and use their skill and passion.
Which is awesome. I mean, that's what God calls us to do. I think also, it's an important point to make that not all women feel comfortable carrying a firearm or serving in that capacity. And I would still encourage them to seek out serving on the security team, regardless of whether they are part of that armed component or not. There's still value to having these women serve.
Yes, and I appreciate that about your podcast, that the focus is not the firearm. The focus is the larger picture of mindset and skill set, because a safety team might be responding to medical events or even an evacuation natural disaster more often than they will a serious threat to bodily harm. So the firearm isn't necessary to be an asset on the team with de-escalation or staying calm and assisting people out of a building,
Medical emergencies or anything else that comes up.
Definitely.
Yeah, because you're going to see far more of those things. And, like I've talked about in other podcasts, and it's just reemphasizing that we can't forget that the church is here for the hurting and the broken, that ministry still has to happen. So how do we do it well, and how do we do it as safely as possible in that? Firm believer, you prepare for the worst case scenario, but recognize that ministry has still got to happen.
Definitely. And anyone on the team at their church, I like to remind them that they wear many hats. They are potentially a greeter, an usher, an assistant to children's ministry, or someone who might see a person that just needs prayer.
Yeah, we make sure that our security team at our church understands that, and that's something I stress with others, is that there really shouldn't be much difference between the security individual and the usher or the greeter. In that, it's just we're looking at things a little differently. But if somebody approaches me, or I see somebody that looks like they're lost, maybe they're new to the church, then why just watch them wander around? Go up and talk with them and say, hey, can I help you find something? Or are you looking for something? It might be a great deterrent to somebody wanting to do harm, but in most cases, they're just looking for, maybe it's the restroom or something. And then another big customer service point is you don't just point to the next building. Yeah, it's over in that building over there. No, walk them over there.
I did that 2 Sundays ago, and it was great. Somebody said, hi, we've never been here before. And I said, I'll walk with you and show you where you're headed.
Yeah, it's my wife is on staff at our church, and her biggest pet peeve is to see somebody point and say, yeah, it's over at that building downstairs and so on. No, walk the person over and have a good conversation in the meantime. Get to know them a little bit.
Yeah, build relationships.
Right. Well, Gretchen, is there anything else before we wrap up any other points that you'd like to make today?
I just wanted to highlight a statistic that for most of us ladies, they are either the only female member of their security team, or if they're a part of a larger church, they feel that females represent 3%. So I just want to open people's eyes to the potential that might be right there, the resources in their church. And I want to challenge women to consider, whether they ever are armed or not, to think about serving the Lord in this way.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, and I think that's a very accurate statistic in what we see. Even at our seminars, we do get the women that come that are serving in their teams, and I just applaud them for stepping in and doing that, and that there needs to be more. It just creates greater depth to the ministry that the church is able to do in that capacity. Now, I always ask, there's a good chance we'll get feedback from this. Is it all right if we send that feedback your direction?
Oh, 100%. I'm open to it. I can answer emails or take phone calls. Humbly, I'm not an expert on the subject, but I'm happy to be an encouragement to anyone.
Absolutely. And we'll definitely have links to the Well-Armed Woman, and also the link to that second website that the Well-Armed Woman has in finding a chapter in your area. A lot of great resources on the website. I've had an opportunity over the last 6 years to engage with the well-armed woman at several of our seminars, with the sheepdogs as I travel with sheepdog seminars, and it's always great to have them there and to have that conversation with them about their chapters, and they just love what they do. They love to teach women. They love to see women grow in this capacity, and I would highly encourage you to seek that out and to serve in that capacity. Seek out if you haven't been invited, step out and offer your services to your church's security team.
I agree 100%. And thank you for those great observations about the well-armed woman. It truly is changing people's lives.
Absolutely. Well, I sure appreciate your time, taking the time to get with those other ladies and get their input as well, and to come on and hopefully create a positive response for our teams, for our churches, and for the well-armed woman as well.
Thank you so much, Daniel. It's been quite an opportunity, and I'm thankful for the chance to contribute how I can.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for taking time to listen to this podcast. If you really enjoyed it and you found it of benefit to you, we really appreciate your feedback. There's several different ways that you can provide us feedback. One of them is to subscribe to the podcast, is to share it with others, and another is to contact us directly, particularly if you have any questions or concerns, or you want more information on how to host a seminar in your community. You can contact me directly at danielblevins@cv@heart.com, or you can go to our website. That's cv-ministries.com. Both of those will get you in the right direction. Until next time, make sure that you're out there protecting the flock with a heart of service.